Federal judge dealing a blow today to Elon Musk and Doge in a ruling that came out earlier this afternoon. Judge said that the accelerated shutdown of USAID, that was likely unconstitutional. The judge then ordering Doge to restore USAID emails and payments within 7 days, also barring the Trump administration from terminating employees or putting them on leave at that agency. Comes after the administration told 1,600 U.S.-based staffers for the agency that they were indeed being fired. Let's get the legal take on this from attorney Misty Marris, who joins us right now. Always good to see Misty. What is your take?
Well, another day, Connell, and another constitutional question. So of the judge putting a pause on what happened with USAID. So we know there were these mass firings shutting down the organization. Essentially, what was asked is to take a look at this. Is there an issue that would result in irreparable harm? Is there likelihood of success on the merits to say, let's stop and see if this passes constitutional muster? So that's what we see here. It's not that the arguments can't continue to be raised at a later time. It's just that USAID, according to this order, has to continue functioning until the court rules on those constitutional questions at play.
You call them constitutional questions. The next story we're about to talk about, others have said could be a constitutional crisis. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but let me talk about these deportation flights for a moment. New York Times headline on the Trump administration pushing back against the judge's order on deportation says that the Justice Department asked the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia to remove the Judge Boasberg, from the case, citing highly unusual and improper procedures he's used, keeping up the pressure on the judge, accusing him of judicial micromanagement. The president since has said he should be impeached. Some freshman member of Congress has introduced articles of impeachment in the House. And in a very rare move, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, John Roberts, has felt the need, in his mind, to issue a statement, which he rarely does, condemning that part of it. Says for more than 2 centuries it's been established impeachment's not an appropriate response to a disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. So you must have some thoughts on watching all of this. I don't know if it's a crisis or anywhere close to it, but what do you think?
Well, first of all, I agree with Justice Roberts, obviously a brilliant legal mind, to say that impeachment isn't really the right remedy for disagreeing with an order of the court. I think that would be almost an of course to think of it in that way. And there is an appellate process, and in fact, an appeal has been filed, and there's a novel legal question about whether or not the Alien Enemies Act falls under exclusively executive power, whether the subject matter falls under that act, and whether there should be judicial review of any kind. But again, that is a question for the courts ultimately to decide. So impeachment, to me, I'd take that off the table. Asking for a new judge, unlikely. In federal court, you're not really allowed to go judge shopping. Same applies to state court, just because a judge has a different take. Now, asking for it, if there's some kind of conflict of interest or something like that, maybe. In this case, I don't think that's going to be a successful application. Have to go up that appellate review just like your typical litigation.
How do you think the whole thing will end up? Because we were trying to figure it out yesterday before we knew about all of this impeachment business and all the John Roberts statements and the like, just figuring out that next time they come to court, because the judge didn't really make a ruling last night, say he does rule against the administration. You have these alleged gang members already in El Salvador. So, I mean, what do you think this all ends up resolving, if anything, or just maybe setting a precedent for the future?
It's really going to be a question about executive power versus the judiciary. And this is the separation of powers issues that we're seeing come up time and time again. And the major question is whether or not these deportations fall under the Alien Enemies Act at all. And that's the legal question to be answered. Can this qualify as an invasion of government? And Trump is making that argument. And if it does fall under that act, well, then it really does fall within the executive authority and executive power. But if it does not, then there is process. There's arrest and detention and removal procedures, which are different than the way that this was enacted. Now, Connell, the judge has asked, hey, I need more information about when these flights took off, when they arrived, when these individuals were out of the custody of the United States. And that's because the judge is actually analyzing whether a contempt order is appropriate under the circumstances, since it seems that the Trump administration may have, and the DOJ may have, defied a court order. So there's lots of different things going on, but it's really going to set a precedent about that authority of the executive branch on this issue moving forward. So it's incredibly important, and it's answering a question on a statute that's, as old as you can imagine, and hasn't been utilized in modern times.
Right, but that's a big issue in this administration right now on a number of different fronts, executive power. All right, Misty, thanks, as always. Misty Marris.
Thanks, Connell.